Welcome back to Bandwagon fans. This is Jeff.
And Renee.
And we are going to be talking in general. We're going to be talking about just kind of movies in general, and specifically what we're looking for in a movie. So I was just talking to Renee about, for those of you who are familiar with the channel Double Toasted, Martin and Corey out of Austin, Texas. Great guys, love their channel. And today they released a video about movies in 2019, and basically that they're all shit. And I agree with them. I've been ranting for the last 2 months about how bad 2019 has been. But rather than just talk about why these movies are bad, I kind of want to take it a different direction and really talk about what we're looking for in movies. Mm-hmm. And maybe we're just asking too much of movies. And
I don't think so.
We'll get to that. So. Right. We'll get to that later, but so I'm going to kick it off to you first. Like, if in a nutshell, what is it when you go to a movie? What is it that you are expecting? What is the experience you're expecting to have?
So I would say that there's essentially two different tracks. Okay. I'm either looking to be entertained, which is a slightly different thing. Like if we look at John Wick, that's pure entertainment. It was shot well. It didn't get in its own way. It didn't try to make an overly complicated plot. It just leaned into what it was, which is an action flick with some really awesome kills. But then there's the other side of stuff when I'm interested in movies, when I'm looking to feel something, when I'm expecting a higher level of emotional engagement. And in those instances, I'm really looking for really strong character. I'm looking for a plot that's you can follow, really good cinematography, really good music, score, those sorts of things. Okay. And so that could be, and I find those less common. The ability to go to a movie and then leave crying or leave really moved. Those I found were in short supply this year.
Okay. So for a second I thought you were going to go towards my thesis about art in general. I don't know if you've ever heard me and Scott talking about this. So my thesis about art in general is there's two purposes for art. One is to educate, one is to entertain. Yeah. And in a perfect world, they do both. Right. They merge and they do both. Right. And I'm kind of with you, like, but what I would say is I just want to be moved in general. Whether it's a thrilling, whether it's to be thrilled like from an action movie, or scared, or laugh, or cry.
Have an emotion.
I want it to have some kind of an effect on me, other than boredom or annoyance.
So like how was John Wick entertaining?
So John Wick was, that's a good question, because it didn't really
move you, right?
It did. It actually did move me in a way, because as I was watching it, I was constantly impressed by the artistry of of the choreography.
Kills and
Yeah. So even though so in that sense, there's kind of just a pure aesthetic. There's just a pure aesthetic value of just appreciating something for its beauty. Yes. And John Wick, in its own way, was a beautiful movie for its movement. When it stopped for them to talk, I lost just all interest. I was referring it to as cutscenes in a video game, and I hate cutscenes. Yeah. But when they were actually fighting, using the books or using all the different layers of glass, the knives, all that stuff was really cool, and that was entertaining. It was something. It felt like something I hadn't seen before, even though probably every element in there had been seen before. Right. So in that way, that's why John Wick worked. But I didn't really have an emotional connection, which is why it's not something I'm going to rush out and see a second or third time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I felt stronger about John Wick then. I really passionately loved all the killing. Like, I think, but to build on your point, I think the reason it worked well is if it had been shot crappily and you couldn't have seen, then it would have absolutely been a horrible film. Because it didn't have enough plot, it didn't have enough character to hold it. So the only thing it really had going for it was really well done choreography and fight scenes, and then shot well. Shot with a lot of atmospheric elements. I thought that worked.
Are you a Jet Li fan at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a casual. Like, you know, if I see him, I'm like, yeah, I know who Jet Li is.
So I went through a phase where I watched almost every Jet Li movie there is.
Yeah.
And his actual From China movies are shot like what you're describing, where you can actually see it. They just kind of let the camera sit back and you can actually see what's happening. When he started coming over to America and doing Hollywood movies, Hollywood directors did not know how to shoot him.
Yeah.
Romeo Must Die, and I forget what the other one was. What the other one was called, and then Lethal Weapon 4. You could not see what he was doing, and it was just terrible. I hated those movies.
A major failing of action films.
Yeah.
When they do that, when they kind of cut away and make it jumbled.
Either too dark. It's the biggest problem I have with Black Panther. The third act, the fight in the cavern.
Oh, it's too dark.
It was too dark, and they were in black costumes.
Yeah.
You could not differentiate or tell what they were doing. It just looked like almost looked like a video game of blobs bouncing around a black screen. So
that's Game of Thrones. I've heard the same sort of complaint.
Yeah,
the shooting of it is just you can't tell what's happening.
Never saw it.
And then on top of that ends up looking like that's lazy filmmaking. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for them to blur. They should invest the time to choreograph things well and light them well. Like, I feel like that's a major failing of those types of films.
Yeah. So going to laziness. Mm-hmm. So here's an example. So I started the question earlier of, are we expecting too much? And I think what we can expect and what we should demand is that you're not lazy.
Yeah.
You might make a choice that I don't like or it doesn't hit me, but don't be lazy about it. A Medea funeral. It's my first Medea movie, and there was literally one scene where they're talking around a kitchen island, and the person talking walks behind everybody, while they're talking walks off camera, still talking, and then comes back in frame. It's inexcusable. That is, you have to reshoot that. Yeah. And either make the actor stay on screen or pull the camera back a little bit. You cannot just have the talker walk off screen.
Right.
And that's evidence of a movie that they're like, hey, we've got a 7-day schedule. We're gonna meet that no matter what.
Shoot it, wrap, move on. Yeah. And it's not staged well, blocked well. Yeah.
But even Medea made me laugh more than most other movies. So
this all started because of Men in Black. So we saw Men in Black. And I think, so again, I was thinking about like why this one, so the other dimension that I look for in lots of types of story is unexpectedness. When the narrator, sorry, that's a writing term, when the movie goes in a direction I couldn't intuit or figure out. Now, what's problematic or challenging about that is you have to give enough clues in the body of the movie so that when it comes about, it still feels inevitable. So it can't just be out of nowhere that something happens. But if I can see the punchline coming, if I can see the joke coming, if I can see the obvious sort of like action step that's about to happen, then that becomes boring because I've almost lived it already. Like I saw it in my head, put it together, and then saw it, and then I'm just seeing it again. So unexpectedness is a really key part of my movie-going experience. But like Men in Black failed that horribly because they give you all the clues, they give you no other red herrings, and so you have all the clues and you can just figure out what's happening. Yeah.
All right. So at this point for this channel, I don't care about spoilers. When we talk about something,
no spoilers.
We assume you either
spoilers.
Yeah. Like, so Men in Black, I think what you're referring to is the twist that Liam Neeson was the mole. Yeah. And that was obvious as
the moment, like
the moment they said that there was a mole, it's Liam Neeson.
You're like,
they're trying to divert us with that other guy, but it's Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Absolutely no shot. And I'm totally with you. And so one thing to I'm going to take a moment to just kind of defend filmmakers, because filmmaking is the most unique art form in a couple respects. There is no other art form that requires as many people for as long to produce something, and you have to produce something that captures people's attention for 90 to 120 minutes, undivided attention, and you get one shot at it. Whereas with a book, somebody could pick it up, start reading it, come back to it, set it down, reread it. A painting, it just kind of hangs there, and you just have to capture somebody's attention for a couple minutes, and then maybe they come back and look at it again. But a movie, you have to have somebody's undivided attention for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and you have hundreds of people working on this thing over several months.
Right.
And it's almost a miracle that finished products ever get delivered to the masses.
I think it's totally that's true. I mean, I think music might be in that same sort of vein though, where it's like the
not to the extent
you
of
experience
film.
No, not to the even on a monetary perspective too, but just like that is the director's job. You had one job, which is to have a unified vision of how that movie is meant to turn out. And that is, and I think when you see in the credits that so-and-so took over for so-and-so, there was 8 different writers for it, and there was like 100 producers, that's generally a sign to me that too many people were at the table trying to have a say in it, and it gets kind of mishmash. Because if you have one person who's like, this is what it's supposed to, Wes Anderson, someone, and regardless of what you feel about Wes Anderson, like someone who's like, this is what this art piece is meant to be. Art piece, it's a cinematic art. Even if it's just entertainment, so that's lazy. That's lazy when they have 8 people working on it and it gets it all clusterfucked. It's just not.
So 2 examples. Josh Trank's Fan 4-Stick. Are you familiar with that movie at all? So this was the Fantastic Four movie that came out a few years ago. Absolutely horrible. And you can see.
Oh, right.
You can see the example everybody talks about is Kate Mara's hair or her wig. Like you can see from scene to scene what a second director came in and reshot. And then Josh Trank, the day the movie was released, was just like, this isn't my movie, y'all can piss off. Or Justice League with Zack Snyder and Josh, I can't believe I'm blowing the Avengers director's name.
I would never know that, so I'm not gonna.
Who directed the Avengers? Oh my God! Somebody's gonna kill me if I blow this.
So many comments in the thing about.
Yeah. Joss Whedon.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So
right.
Joss Whedon came in.
Yeah.
Joss Whedon came in to finish the reshoots and recut Justice League.
Yes.
So there's 2 examples, and then a third example, and we've talked about this off camera, that I think worked was Rogue One. Was heavily reshot and basically ghost directed, and I don't remember either of the directors' names. Like they basically completely redid the ending. The whole ending of Rogue One, where she's up on the tower. Yeah. They were actually supposed to be on the ground. So like, there's a lot of stuff you see in the trailers, and that's why what was in the trailer wasn't in the final movie. So sometimes kind of what you were alluding to earlier was like studio meddling and producers meddling, but sometimes it works because.
But I think it works when the studio trusts the person coming in, and the person coming in gets to have full control, and they're truly fixing something, versus it being like a squabble between them that has nothing to do with actual art. It has to do with personalities. And then next thing you know, someone else is taken up to the helm. And honestly, I didn't even really look at Men in Black to see if that was the issue. But everything about that was the most benign version. That's something we talk a little bit about this in writing with. If you have a really sort of edgy story that maybe is a little bit messy, when you bring it into workshop, what people sort of do is push you towards the average. So you start getting people kind of hacking away all those edges until you get this like little puddle of soft, mushy, safe. It's like bread. It's like white bread. And that's the risk of having too many voices involved, is it starts to become, it goes towards the mean, and there's nothing interesting in that. And so everything about it was safe. Some of it was totally incoherent. It made no sense. They weren't tracking an emotional arc for any of the characters.
No.
And you know, one of the selling points that Agent M makes early on in the film, and she's like, I have no life, and it's like, then that makes you very uninteresting. Like, you have no life, and she's like, so I'm perfect for this. It's like, maybe like as an agent you're probably perfect, but also that makes you so boring as a character. Yeah. Nothing interesting about that.
So there's another channel, Breakfast All Day, and they commented, I think it was Chris that commented that Tessa Thompson's character was more interesting in the first 10 minutes.
Right.
And then as soon as she put on the suit, we lost all interest in her.
Right.
And absolutely. And all right, Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth. They are 2 of the most charismatic people in Hollywood.
Great. Yeah.
Like, you have to try to make those 2 uninteresting.
I know.
And try they did, because they were bad. So what is the magic? What is the formula?
Like, why does it, when it works, why does it work?
You know, we can talk about like Star Wars with George Lucas, and a lot of people say that this is an example of the single visionary creating this movie, but that's horseshit. there are at least 3 examples of in Star Wars where other people had to come in, and if they had not been there, his wife, Sir Alec Guinness, and there's another director. It's not Francis Ford Coppola. We were just talking about this the other night. Who directed Scarface?
Nothing like a movie channel where we don't know any of the directors.
Whatever.
Yeah, and the other guy.
Yeah. So anyways, there's several examples where other people came in and guided and Alec Guinness pushed the cast to actually perform.
Yeah.
George Lucas's wife recut the entire third act to introduce the Battle of Yavin, which wasn't shot or in the screenplay at all. And then the entire opening crawl was rewritten because the way George Lucas wrote it and shot it, it was like 5 minutes, and everybody would have walked before even the first shots were fired. Right. So it is a collaborative project. The director is responsible for everything, but it is not just the director. Like
exactly, and yes, and so like that towards that point, like even in writing or any probably in any of the arts. Sometimes what happens is, as the artist, your job is to surround yourself with people who understand what your vision is. And so if you're going to take a story, and every story you get is this misshapen thing, and it can be hard-edged and weird, but the job of your readers is to help you achieve the vision you're trying to get. So like you're supposed to surround yourself by those people who get it and can do it, not just studio execs who are trying to make a big buck. And not that studio execs haven't done and can do good things, but like it's just not the same as having someone who gets, like George Lucas's wife got it, right? Like she understood what he was trying to do. Or you're checking how many?
Yeah, no, I was looking at the director. So F. Gary Gray is the director of Men in Black, and he has, he's directing Mask. He directed Fate of the Furious.
Oh.
Straight Outta Compton. Law Abiding Citizen. He's got quite a few movie credits going on.
Sure. Nothing.
And they're all better than this.
Right. Which makes me suspect that because it was this flagship piece, he didn't really get to direct this in the way that he maybe would have wanted to.
That's quite possible.
Or he gets handed a script that's been so butchered that there's only so much you can do with it, right? Like there's this one scene where there's this like little gem thing, this tool thing, and it's like kind of folded up into this little they land they crash in the desert, and this little toy thing that Tessa Thompson's character Agent M has, and it starts jumping around like this, and Agent H goes, "What is it doing?" And she goes, "It's moving," even though we as viewers can see that's what's happening. So that whole bit of dialogue was totally pointless. There was no reason.
There was no information. It was an incredibly inefficient.
There's no character revealing in that. He's just like, "What is happening?" And she's like, "It's moving." I mean, we could see it. So that was such bad script writing.
Yeah.
Just so bad.
Yeah. So what? At least in the last year and a half, what are some movies that worked for you?
Okay, Booksmart. 112%. Like that was a very well done movie. So it had two characters it followed two characters, so it wasn't confused about who it was trying to tell a story about. It focused on female friendship, which is of personal interest to me, but I think it's also more than, friendship in general, right? So then it was really sharp dialogue, but also it did something which I think books can't do or movies can't do, which is it sometimes told character revealing elements purely in a visual way. Like there's this one moment where the two main characters are talking about like we're gonna go out and we're gonna party, and one of the characters just grabs a cake, a graduation cake, celebration cake, and she just throws it off the mountain. And it's this hilarious moment where who knows if it was scripted. I think they did a lot of improv on the set. She just throws it off the mountain, and it was just this perfect cinematic moment because you could write that, but just having that visual joke within it was like those really small attention to detail moments are so great. And then for me, the music in this was next level stuff. Coming in at the right moment, using music of the zeitgeist, using music of the now, and then playing it at the right emotional moment. There's that whole scene with Perfume Genius music plays, and they're in this pool, and it was just like so well done. It's matching. It's a great example of matching mood, using music to match and evoke the mood of the film in a way that was just like so well done.
Better than Tarantino does?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me say this. Probably not. If
right.
if we're gonna go mano a mano, probably not. Except that I like this film better than a Tarantino film because I really do like Quentin Tarantino, but this one spoke to me on a more personal level.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So on a more personal level, why? What was it? What did it say to you?
Well, it mirrored my own personal experiences of being a nerdy young person who spent all your time really trying to stay in school and achieve something in school, but sort of at the expense of your own like experience of being in school. And so it's about these two girls who decide like we're gonna go live a little, and it's exactly the sort of adventure I didn't have, and so part of me feels really like attached to that idea of having that type of adventure.
Okay. So one of the things that and it's kind of the reason why I really wanted to go out and watch more movies and why. What's that?
Is it Brian De Palma?
Brian De Palma, yeah. So earlier from the urban legend, it's Brian De Palma basically rewrote the opening crawl for Star Wars. But I want to see a movie that connects me. And this sounds corny, this sounds goofy, but I want a movie that I feel connected to a greater humanity in.
Okay.
To some extent.
Like, what's an example of a film that you feel like has done that well in the past?
Just off the top of my head, Wind River. Tully did that for me.
I saw The Mustang this year, which was stunning.
I haven't even heard of The Mustang.
That was a very well done. I mean, it was played at the Loft, which is our local
Art House
place,
Theater.
Art House Theater.
Closest,
it was beautiful.
the closest thing we have.
Very spare dialogue, supremely well acted, and again, good music. And then I'm always a fan of a story about a horse. And then, and it was, the cinematography was so stunning. So it brought in so many different elements. And then, of course, it's a guy who's in prison, and he starts working on to help train the wild Mustangs so that they can be sold at auction. It was an extremely, extremely well done movie. I would say that's maybe one of my favorite films of 2019.
Really? And I didn't even hear about it.
Got my ear to the
ground
on that.
Yeah, so I haven't, I have not been to the Loft in a while. So
they show some crappy stuff because all movie theaters do, but they show some really good. Like that one was so beautiful and heartbreaking, really heartbreaking. But it is about prison reform. It's about like redemption. So it is about something bigger than it's about humanity.
Yeah, I've really been. I mean, this year I've been. Oh God, I've really been focusing on watching like the major movies.
Yeah, the big ones. Yeah.
And I'm done with that because they suck. This like so, you talk about we can talk about like a movie that played it too safe, like Men in Black. You refer to it as like white bread, right? It was just so many hands in the pot, needing away anything interesting that it was left with nothing.
Yes.
But then I'll go back to a couple movies at the beginning of the year, and you probably didn't see either one of them. Serenity and Replicas. Replicas was a Keanu Reeves science fiction movie about cloning and artificial intelligence.
Oh, yes. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
And then Serenity was with not Bradley Cooper, Matthew McConaughey, and I'm forgetting her name.
Oh, and she's the one with the big eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, big-eyed actress girl. We're professional.
We're really good at this.
Anne Hathaway. It's inexcusable. But Serenity was a movie that really swung for the fences and took some chances.
Sure.
And it was awful.
Oh.
It was like it was terrible.
Why?
To continue the baseball metaphor, they swung for the fences and swung so far that they spun around and fell down. It tried doing this twist ending that just made the entire logic of the movie collapse.
Oh God, that's the
worst. Completely fell apart. And if you watched any review, if you watched mine or Double Toast or any review about this, everybody's like, we were actually on board with this movie until about they actually revealed the twist about an hour, like pretty early on, but it just the more it was going, it just completely unraveled. So on the one hand, I wanted to applaud them for taking a big risk, but there's a reason it got released in January, right? It got dumped, and then Replica is kind of the same thing. It's like they took some chances, but it just didn't work. So you watch movies like that, and then it's like, okay, you understand why movies
get sort of benign.
And play it safe, because you know what played it really safe? Aladdin. Aladdin was about as safe as you could get.
Yeah.
And it was entertaining.
And it worked.
They just did it. They did it well. But what does doing it well mean?
Right.
The MCU movies get criticized for being safe all the time, but they're almost universally good, other than a couple clunkers early on. It's just,
and I would say that the MCU films do storytelling well, and they generally have a very well defined emotional arc for their characters.
They all have solid themes.
Correct.
Yeah, so
they do a lot of good storytelling.
Do a quick analysis about MCU movies in general, what the MCU formula actually is.
Right.
Because a lot of people try to tell you what the formula is, and they fuck it up completely. Number one, have a theme. Develop characters around that theme.
Sure.
And have the plot develop that theme.
Right.
Almost every movie does something like that. Where the MCU movies fall apart, particularly early on, is they don't start off with a theme. I challenge anybody to tell me what the theme of Iron Man 3 was, or The Incredible Hulk.
Oh.
Or Thor: The Dark World.
Well, Hulk, in this current iteration of he doesn't have his own standalone.
He does. The Incredible Hulk is the
Mark Ruffalo's what?
No,
there's no Mark Ruffalo Hulk.
No.
Right. Okay.
But the Incredible Hulk, the second standalone Hulk movie, is part of the MCU.
I know, but
not the Eric Bana one.
I'm not. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it is.
Edward Norton. No, I agree with that, but I'm just not seeing those.
Yeah.
The Hulk is the least interesting one to me, the least interesting. So I'm never going to see those.
But there was no particular theme being developed in that movie. Whereas if you look at all of the Russo brother movies, or Captain Marvel, or the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, they're developing certain themes in every movie, and those themes play out through the characters, and then the plot pushes those characters and that theme to some sort of fruition.
Yeah, I mean, Civil War was a very clear sort of example, a good example of, I think, that sort of thing. Right, and that's where...
The DC movies, none of that.
Oh,
none of it.
They're just pure showmanship.
It is just pure plot. It is A begets B begets C.
It's not. I wouldn't even say it's clear plot. I mean, the plots are still kind of messed up.
Not clear, but pure plot.
I think they're just pure showmanship. They just want you to see Batman fight Superman, even though it makes no sense.
Did you watch Aquaman?
Oh yeah, I did.
Aquaman was rough.
It was bad.
Aquaman, I actually had to get up and leave for 5 minutes because I couldn't take.
It's bad.
I couldn't take one more explosion action scene.
It's so. Oh gosh. Yeah, but good films can have explosion. I mean, I think that's why I always go back to John Wick, because I think it's a good example of the type of film. Like, do I like an art house film? Yes, but I also feel like it's a good example of the type of film you can have that's entertaining, but doesn't just knows exactly what it is and just tries to be that thing, and it doesn't try to go above and beyond that. It doesn't try to do more, and so I feel like it's a fairly good example of an okay film that can still do well and not be stupid.
Okay. Now, going back to kind of the question I asked at the very beginning, do we as audience members ask too much of films?
No! How are we? No! We deserve good stories, like Lady
for $7.50 or
$13.
Where do you pay? This is Tucson. We're not paying $13
That's true,
for anything here.
Maybe some are yours.
All right, yeah. In Los Angeles, in Tucson, if you're paying more than $10, you're getting ripped off.
Okay, all right.
But
still money. We're paying money.
But for $10, for what goes into a film, is it too much to ask for every film to move me emotionally? Or to challenge me intellectually?
No.
Is it okay just to have a film that's just passively... Men in Black is like solitaire. And I play hours and hours of solitaire.
No. No, it's not okay. It's horrible. It's why so much time and effort and money? Why would you want to produce white bread? Like, why would you want to produce the most boring version of something? How do you... Of course we want something more interesting. And I think that is Men in Black.
Because why does white bread sell?
That's true. Because
it's the most palatable to the most number of people.
Can certain people out in the world expect to get be okay? Like, yeah, it's an okay movie. Some people probably liked Ma, right? But can you I don't want those films. They should not stop them. Someone go and stop them. Make better films. End of story. Better films. Get a better editor. Get someone who looks at your film and goes, what the? And recuts it and edits it. Just like George Lucas had somebody in his life. Everyone needs that person in their life.
So, I can't remember if there's another channel on YouTube, and I really apologize for not, and there's no way I'm going to be able to look it up. I'm not even going to be able to look who this up, but somebody had a really good video on YouTube where he described the zone. I think he was calling Justice League the worst movie ever made. And his argument was, and I really apologize for not remembering who this was or not looking up ahead of time. Take a movie like this, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Mm-hmm. Objectively, Justice League is a better movie than this. It's better acted, higher production values.
Okay.
It is just a better. This was a piece of crap that people threw together.
Sure.
However, Justice League is a worse movie because what he defined as if it's really bad, it can be entertaining. If it's really good, it can be entertaining. But when it's right in that middle zone of not being bad or good, it is just god awful boring.
Yeah.
And he called Justice League the perfect example of that, of just being so safe and so boring.
Yes.
That it wasn't worth watching even for a chuckle.
No. Yep.
And I think that's kind of what you're describing is that kind of the white bread zone.
It's just and it is the idea do studios want to make their money? Yes. I mean, right, because you, me, and then a bunch of people, some people doing 20, but some people may be doing less, right? $7.50 to see a movie. They're going to make a shit ton of money. They're going to make a lot of money. So now some of them are going to lose money on things too. But if you just made a better movie, you wouldn't lose money on it.
Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
They're actually going to lose money on Dark Phoenix.
Legit. Yeah, and did you see the director came out and said, sorry, y'all. He owned it. He was kind of like, yeah, that wasn't a great movie.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and it's another movie that had to be reshot.
Yep.
I want it. There's a lot of talk about one round of reshoots, but going back with the history, I'm pretty sure was largely reshot twice.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
I mean that movie was supposed to be released a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the worst movie ever. No. It wasn't even the worst X-Men movie.
I didn't see it. I'm saying I did.
But it's not even the worst X-Men movie. There's been worse out there, but it was just
X-Men
uninteresting.
Was pretty. I would almost rather I was kind of at some point hoping for that with Ma. It was it was so bad it became good. You could almost enjoy how horrible it was. And then
Ma?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for. Was that something could be so bad that it was good? Because I would almost rather that than it just be boring.
Yeah.
Right?
So we talked before, the scene that kind of exemplifies Ma was she was about to cut off a dick, which would have been absolutely horrible, and I don't want to see that. But at the last second, she didn't. She put the knife away, and it's
right.
So, you're just threatening us with something.
Something that could
and then
have
not delivering at all.
Horrific, but in a good way, kind of.
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to see it, but then don't threaten it.
Right.
It didn't have to be introduced at all. It didn't add anything to the scene.
It did not.
And if you're gonna not do it, then we're just well, then why did you even put it? I don't know.
So did you see The Witch?
I did not like The Witch.
Oh, okay. That's sort of separate. But to that point is, again, spoilers, the baby is stolen in the first 5 minutes, and then it cuts to a scene where they've killed the baby. And that's when you're like, oh, it's going to be one of those films, right? It's going to be a film where they don't get the baby back. That's not the journey of it. So I feel like that's a film teaches you how to watch it. It shows you what the voice of the film is going to be. And I felt like The Witch did do that well, whereas Ma didn't do that's a perfect example, right? It's what type of, and then so then what type of film are you? Because you're not going to go, you're threatening it, but then you're not doing it, so you're right in the middle, and it's boring.
Yeah, The Witch. It's one of those movies that watching it, I'm I should be liking this. It just bored me. I didn't get it. I also really did not like Hereditary.
I didn't.
And they're by the same director.
Right, yeah. And he's got a new one coming out. Did you see? Sonar or something like that?
Hopefully this one is better. Robert Eggers. I didn't like either one.
I will see it because I think this, to what you were saying earlier, I think at least he's swinging for the fences. And I feel like The Witch connected But Hereditary, I kind of had mixed feelings about. But
yeah. Yeah, so The Witch is one of the movies I just watched on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
So it's possible that I was just partially checked out when I was watching it.
Because it's very subtle.
It is.
Yeah.
And I do love a good witchcraft movie. I like possession movies. I love those things. Which is why I wanted to watch it. But it was just so it was less a horror movie and more a period piece. It was more about I was not interested.
It really was about the oppression of women. It was really about sexual awakenings and the oppression of that. And so it was less scary. I expected a little more like scare. But I mean, Black Phillip's voice coming in at the end there. Oh, awesome.
Watching videos about The Witch for me was more interesting than actually watching The Witch.
Oh, yeah. What do you mean watching videos around The Witch?
Like watching videos where people talk about The Witch.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Was more interesting to me than actually watching The Witch.
I really like that one.
But I will give them credit. That was a movie that made you think about something.
Correct.
And that's one of my criteria for movies is force me to think about something.
Correct. If I leave and I'm willing to have a debate with someone about it because like Dead Man Walking, which I think is probably a little bit too like on the nose about that, but there's this really amazing scene at the end of Dead Man Walking when they finally execute him, right? And it does this. It's a shot from above, and it's a slow pan out from him being on. And what it does is it jumps between him and her, right? Like the woman he murdered, the girl he murdered, and him. And so it's this cut scene between the two of them. And when my sister saw it, she said justice, and when I saw that scene, I said hypocrisy. So it was again, that's a film that used a cinematic element, which was to show two sort of the different points, and then allowed us as viewers to make our own decisions about that. And I thought that's really well done. Yeah,
interesting. I haven't seen that one, but I agree with you if a movie can make even if you disagree with the filmmaker's vision, or you disagree with the people you saw it with.
Yes.
If it makes you want to talk about it, that's as good to me. That's what we're talking about this whole time with an emotional reaction.
Right.
But again, going back to kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, like I don't know what the magic sauce is, what the special sauce is, what the formula is.
Right.
Or if there even is a formula. Like it seems so arbitrary. You could say, well, if it's too formulaic, like a musical biopic. Which they're just awful. I hate them so much because of the formula they follow.
Yep.
But then when you get a movie that tries to not have a formula, that tries to think outside the box, it's like I'm not with you. I'm not with you on this.
Right.
Us would be a good example of that for me, where Jordan Peele kind of went against the grain, kind of broke a formula.
Sure.
And I just wasn't with him at all.
Oh, okay. I was with him.
Yeah.
That's a separate discussion, though.
It is a separate discussion.
But yeah, right. Like, so what is it? I don't know. And that's the thing is, like, again, working in the field of writing, people want a formula. They want to say, what do I do? X, Y, Z. Like, what elements do I put in? And it is hard because there is truly no formula. And someone else out there is going to come up with something slightly different, and it will still work somehow. And that's the fun of it, and that's what's amazing and why I keep going to see movies is every now and again you see someone push something in a way that you wouldn't have thought of, and it just works really well. And so it's still a really amazing art form that I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can tell you how to fix a lot of films. Like I can tell you, I can see the film and be like, not that.
And that's like we all do that, right?
Right.
And it's fun to do that.
Right.
But it's also completely unfair to take something at the end and say, all right, after watching this 90-minute thing, I know how to fix it.
Of course, it's not football.
But the process, the entire process, is so long. It has so many people involved that. To me, even trying to contemplate how you start the process of making a movie is mind-boggling. Like how do you sit down and write the script to Endgame?
I mean, okay, I would say it all starts with the script, and that if you have a good script, although like if you look at Mad Max Fury Road, right? Like that was kind of I think he started with a fairly like vague script, and I think they worked from that, and he kind of saw the vision on set, but he also has really strong vision, and so I think there's something like that. But like it all starts with a good story, and if you don't have a good story, and if you cut that story up and you make that story weird and you put in really stupid dialogue, then there's you can't fix that. There's no fixing that. If you start at that basic idea, there's no cinematography that will fix that.
Star Wars.
I think that's a good story.
That dialogue,
but it's good story.
It's a very basic story, and that dialogue was hokey as hell.
But it worked. It was good stuff.
And that's so. This is my overall point. I don't know how to fix any of this stuff. I don't know how to. I don't even know what I'm really looking for when I go to watch a movie. I just know what works and what I know afterwards what works or what doesn't, and it's so frustrating how many things aren't working right now.
Right. But you do have a sense of what you want and what will work.
Yeah, I mean, I have a sense of what I want.
A general, right?
But I can't tell you why a movie like Armageddon makes me tear up. And that movie is absolutely ridiculous and dumb as hell.
I've never seen it.
And I hate Michael Bay and everything he stands for, but I can't watch Armageddon without tearing up every single time. You know? Why?
I don't know. That's a whole different. I don't see any like that Armageddon or Titanic. None of that. I'm not going to see that. But I mean,
but Titanic won't make it. Like I could care less about Titanic. But Armageddon got me. And it was completely manipulative. I know it was.
It was.
You know.
I mean, some of it is like what we were talking about the other day. It's like it depends on what you actually like bring into the actual theater with you that day. Sometimes, like, did your popcorn? Is the guy sitting next to you chewing too loudly or something? So.
Yeah. Who knows? All I know is like so far 2019 has. 2018, I really made it a point to get out and go to the movie theater more and really, really throw myself into watching movies and analyzing film. 2019 so far is breaking me. Because, like, if we're already halfway through the year, and if I had to come up with my top 10 list right now, there'd be 5 movies on it.
Sure.
And, that's... After that, like, there is no good movie this year. So
okay, you still need to see The Mustang and Booksmart.
I still need to see there are a couple movies I want to see, but I mean, Cold Pursuit, another Liam Neeson movie. God, that thing was awful, and it totally broke the formula. It totally tried to do something different, but just did everything wrong.
Oh God.
Just completely wrong.
I
So
didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was.
But
bad.
I heard good things about it. So
No, nobody said anything good about that movie.
Really?
It was terrible.
Oh.
It was terrible. It was one of those movies where do you remember 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag?
Oh yeah.
So it really felt like that, but it went. So it had that kind of that kind of gallows humor, but it went too far in the gallows scene.
Oh, and not
to where you couldn't pivot back to the comedy fast enough. So one scene
was it supposed to be a comedy? Have a comedic element?
Yeah. It was absolutely a comedy.
Oh.
And they told you, and if you actually went back and watched it, which I wouldn't recommend doing, from the opening text of the movie or the title scene, the titles, you could tell it was a comedy. But then 5 minutes in, Liam Neeson has a gun in his mouth, and he's going to end it all. Like, seriously, it's a seriously shot. I'm about to kill myself, and then it tries to pivot into comedy 30 seconds later. And it just kept going back and forth like that, and that's why. And you could applaud a movie for taking those risks, but this one absolutely didn't work.
So would you rather? Okay, if you had it, like, if a movie's gonna air, it's not gonna do well. Like, it's not gonna hit the mark for you. Would you rather see a movie that swung and missed or one that didn't, right?
Swung and missed.
Yeah.
I would rather watch a dumpster fire like Cold Pursuit or Serenity than Men in Black.
Men in Black.
I just saw Men in Black 3 days ago. I barely remember it.
It was not fun.
And those are 2 actors I love.
They were some of my favorite.
But I barely remember that movie 2 days later. At least Serenity 6 months later,
You're still talking about it?
I'm still like wrap my head around that movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I
would rather them swing and miss.
Sure.
Than bunt.
Yeah.
Which is what Men in Black did.
Yeah, they just wanted to walk to the thing. Yeah.
So anyways.
So sad.
So any closing comments about any advice to Hollywood? From the story.
Start with a good script art. For fuck's sake, just get a good story. Just get writers. Find writers.
So stories. You do writing.
I do.
What kind of stuff do you write?
Hollywood. I write speculative fiction. So my stuff is really strange. Like, I have a story about a guy whose hair comes alive. So my stuff is not cinematic. in that sense. So but I teach writing, and so I'm often looking at elements of storytelling. And
you could have been a script doctor on Dark Phoenix.
I would have loved that. Yeah.
One of the mutants had one of his mutant power was hair.
What?
Yeah, literally. There was a character in Dark Phoenix, and a prominent character whose mutant power was his hair whipping around and tying people up.
Wow. Is he from the comic books?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't.
Okay.
There's 5,000 mutants in the comic book. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, all right, yeah.
What's your closing thought then? What are you saying to those? Because they're those executives who are watching this.
I would say just slow down the production schedule. Just take your time and put thought into making sure that all the elements actually work together.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm with you. I'm with you on the importance of this on the screenplay. But I also know movies that have risen above a bad screenplay, and at the end of the day, film is a visual medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could do an entire movie without dialogue.
John Wick. I keep going back to that one, right?
Yeah.
There's very little dialogue in that.
Yeah. I mean, you could literally movie with just visual imagery and lighting, and that could be completely interesting.
Sure.
So
The Artist.
Isle of Dogs had minimal dialogue in it.
Right.
And was incredibly interesting. So just number one, stop employing hacks.
Right.
You know who they are. Michael Bay speaking. You know.
Michael Bay.
I think to some extent maybe Bryan Singer. That might be unfair though. He's got other issues, but maybe he's not a hack. But just give a shit.
I know.
Is the biggest thing.
Right.
Just give a shit.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're putting so much money and time and effort. Just make it beautiful.
Yeah. So that's and actually, I think that's basically the same thing the Double Toasted guy said was stop making shitty movies.
Why
just
would
give
you?
a shit.
So
that's my message from just a couple people in Tucson that watch a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Think through what you're doing. Give a shit, and if you're gonna miss, swing hard.
That's right.
That's it. So I think we're gonna have another. This is kind of what we're gonna be doing in the future. Is just more open discussions about kind of a certain topic.
Mm-hmm.
So next week, come back and see what we'll be talking about then. Thanks for watching. I'm Jeff.
I'm Renee.
Get on the bandwagon.